Welcome back to the deep dive. If you're really focused on getting functional English quickly, you've definitely landed in the right place today. Our deep dive is tackling this interesting method that, well, basically turns your music playlist into a language lab. We're analyzing a really specific strategy here from our source material, English through song lyrics and phrases. And the mission, it's pretty simple, really. Show you how to kind of bypass maybe the usual rote memorization and pull out useful real world language straight from songs. It's framed as a shortcut, for the learner.
Yeah, and what strikes me immediately about this approach is how it looks at creative stuff, like music. It's not just entertainment. It treats popular songs as this rich, authentic source of, well, how people actually talk, native speech. It guides you to pull out those conversational bits, the nuggets that textbooks often just don't cover.
Right. And the specific method we're really drilling down into, let's call it the analytical framework, maybe.
Mhm.
It boils down to two main actions. First, you actively explain the lyrics. You don't just translate, you explain. And second, you're highlighting the useful phrases that come up when you do that explaining. It seems like a powerful combo.
But there's a catch, a really key constraint here that makes it work, apparently. It has to be done without singing. That's crucial. This isn't about, hitting the right notes or performing. It's specifically set up to strip away the melody, the rhythm as a distraction, and force your focus completely onto the words themselves. Their structure, what they actually mean in that specific context, the language.
Okay, let's unpack that tactically then, because for someone wanting to learn fast, knowing how to apply this is everything, right? And this deep dive, it points to a specific example we can look at, an actionable model.
Exactly. The source material actually points you straight to a place you can see this in action. It mentions a YouTube channel called Learn and Success, episode 74. So that specific video apparently shows this combination of explaining the lyrics and picking out the phrases. It gives you, an immediate blueprint for how it looks practically.
Okay, so let's dig into that first part then. Explaining lyrics. Why is explaining, like you said, better than just translating word for word, especially for a learner?
Well, translation can be a bit of a trap, honestly. It often gives you just the literal dictionary meaning. But real language and song lyrics are full of it, uses idioms all the time, meanings that aren't literal, but everyone just gets them from the context. So explaining forces you to understand the intention, what the singer or writer actually mean.
Can you give an example? Like if I hear a line in a song, something like, I'm tied up right now. How does that work?
Right. So if you just translate tied up, you might think, ropes, physically restrained.
Yeah, literally tied up.
But when you explain it in context, you immediately see the idiom, I'm tied up, just means I'm busy or I'm occupied with something else. And that little aha moment, understanding that chunk of words as one unit of meaning, not three separate dictionary entries, that's the key. That helps bridge that gap, between textbook English and what you actually hear people say. It's frustrating otherwise.
That makes a lot of sense. It sounds quite focused, actually.
Yeah.
Discipline. Okay, let's shift to the second pillar then. Highlighting useful phrases. Sounds like where the efficiency really kicks in. What kind of phrases should you be looking for when you're pulling them out?
You want to hunt for the high utility stuff, things that pop up everywhere in conversation. So that means focusing on things like phrasal verbs are huge, common fillers people use, metaphors that are used all the time. Like instead of just noting down a noun, look for those 2 or 3 word verbs, take off, put up with, look forward to, stuff like that. Those are really the building blocks of natural chat, and songs are just packed with them.
So the aim isn't just collecting single words, it's collecting ready-made phrases, like stocking up a library of chunks you can just grab and use.
Precisely. And that connects directly to sounding more fluent. When you learn language in chunks, your brain doesn't have to build every sentence from scratch, figuring out grammar word by word. You just retrieve a whole prepackaged phrase like, if you connect this to the bigger picture and you use it, it makes speaking feel faster and sound much more natural too.
Okay, but hang on. If I'm sticking to the no singing rule, aren't I missing something important? Like how native speakers actually say the words. Doesn't the rhythm and the melody kind of help with the right stress, the intonation? That sounds like it could be a real challenge.
That's a really good point. And actually, this is where the method gets quite clever, cognitively speaking. While the rule is no singing, meaning don't get caught up in performing the tune, it absolutely encourages careful listening and analysis of the cadence. The constraint, not singing, forces you to pay attention to the underlying structure of the speech within the song. Think about it, right? English is stress timed. We punch certain syllables, certain words, and others get swallowed or de emphasized. When you sing, often the melody dictates that stress, and sometimes that's not how you'd naturally say it in conversation. By taking the singing away, you're actually freer to analyze why the songwriter put that word on that beat. It can reveal the natural rhythm and stress of the language even more clearly than just trying to mimic the singing.
Ah, okay. So analyzing the lyrics without the tune lets you sort of isolate the spoken rhythm. That's actually quite insightful. It really shifts the focus away from the music and onto the dynamics of spoken language itself.
Exactly, yes. For instance, listen for how phrases smush together. Native speakers rarely say, I'm going to. You often hear, I'm gonna, right?
Yeah.
That blending, the reduction of sounds, it's all over song lyrics. And analyzing the lyric sheet, just reading it while listening carefully, can reveal those natural contractions and elisions, things that slow, careful pronunciation practice might miss.
So let's talk about the overall value here then.
Yeah.
Why are songs potentially better input than, say, traditional textbooks or language lessons?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, traditional materials often give you very clean, grammatically perfect English, sometimes a bit sterile. Songs, though, they're packed with real world language. They've got slang, casual ways of speaking, contractions, emotional words, ways people persuade or argue, stuff people actually use.
So songs are basically this huge archive of authentic conversational English.
Pretty much, yeah. And because songs often have strong emotions or tell a story, the phrases you pull out get linked to that memory or feeling, that connection. That actually makes the learning stick much better. It increases retention compared to like learning a phrase off a flashcard. It's sticky content because you probably enjoy the song too.
Let's circle back to the application then, just to make sure it's super clear for someone listening. We mentioned the reference point that Learn and Success, episode 74, video as a model to see how it's done. But practically, when you extract these phrases, how should you organize them? Just a long list. Perfect.
Oh, organization is absolutely key. If you want to actually use them later, categorization helps a lot. When you highlight a phrase, don't just write it down, tag it somehow, like, is this a filler phrase? Like, or I mean.
Yeah.
Is it something you use to start giving an opinion? Like, if you ask me, or to be honest, or I'm not going to lie. Or is it a transition phrase? Like, having said that, or on the flip side,
Yeah.
if you organize them by their function, their job in the conversation, you can find and use them much faster when you're actually talking instead of just scanning a huge random list.
Gotcha. So it moves it from just passive collecting to actively building a toolkit, your
Yeah.
own repertoire of functional language.
Exactly. And that also helps reduce that feeling of being overwhelmed. English is huge, right? It can feel daunting. But if you limit yourself, say 5 to 10 really useful phrases per song, and you categorize them, you feel like you're making progress. You see results pretty quickly in your own speaking. It feels like a really high return on investment for your study time.
Okay, so summing up the key takeaway from this deep dive,
Mm.
this method of using song lyrics. It seems incredibly efficient if you treat the lyrics systematically. Focus on explaining the context, pulling out those functional chunks of language, and doing it without the distraction of actually singing. That seems to be the path to accelerating your grasp of natural everyday English.
Mm-hmm. And that brings us nicely to a final thought, something for you, the listener, to maybe explore on your own. Given this focus on explaining lyrics, isolating the spoken stuff, we talked about analyzing the cadence, the rhythm. Now, think about the rhyme scheme itself in the song. How might looking at the patterns of rhymes, the internal rhymes, the end rhymes, how might that further reveal which words the speaker really wants to emphasize? What does the rhyme tell you about natural stress and the most important points in English communication? That's something for you to mull over, maybe apply it next time you're listening analytically.